Hello, this is Bobby Cappuccio. Thank you for joining me for another PTontheNET video blog. I've got a friend of mine in the fitness industry who's a speaker and author. His name's Peter Cohn. I think he is absolutely brilliant. We use each other as a sounding board quite a bit. I'll ring him up and ask him questions on a myriad of subjects because I think he's brilliant. And he'll call me as well and ask me questions because, well, I'm not really sure, actually. But anyway, the other day he did something that was a little bit odd, to be quite honest. He sent me a link to a cartoon from Hans Christian Andersen's The Ugly Duckling. Now, for those of you who remember the story, it's the story of this duckling who's hatching eggs, and she comes across this really big egg, and it's massive. It's the biggest egg she's ever hatched. And she's a little confused, but it must be hers, right? So she sits on it and waits and waits and waits and waits, and then hatches this duckling that was quite frankly ugly, which is how he got the reputation of the Ugly Duckling. And he was so strange looking that the rest of the ducklings made fun of him, and it was really hurtful. And eventually it got so bad that he was ostracized from the rest of the troop, and he walked around for, forever, a long, long time, feeling that he was an outcast and different from everyone and everything else. And he was really depressed and downtrodden. And one day, he's walking along the pond feeling really sorry for himself. And he looks, and across the pond is the most magnificent creature in the water he has ever seen. This creature spreads its wings, and it's just gorgeous. And it happened to be a swan. So the Ugly Duckling jumps into the water because he wants to swim up to this thing because he's never seen anything quite as magnificent. And when he jumps into the water, he looks down and he notices that as he's been walking around the land by himself, he's grown up. And he's not a duckling after all. He himself is this gorgeous swan. Now, I don't think the point here is that we can convince our clients that no matter how bad they feel or how bad they think things are, no matter how much they view themselves as an ugly duckling, deep inside there's a swan waiting to grow up and be beautiful. Because I think when somebody has a deeply rooted self-image and sense of identity that causes them a lot of pain, no matter how much they want to see themselves as something far more beautiful, it's too painful to depart from their current sense of identity. And a lot of times, if we paint too compelling or too overreaching of a visual image or set too big a goal, it's going to cause them to derail. It's going to cause them to fail. It's not going to motivate them to success. I remember when I heard the story about the Ugly Duckling, I was 6 years old. I was severely deformed from the neck up. I had no hopes that one day I would turn into a swan, and somebody telling me different really didn't encourage me. It just made the pain even that much more severe. But here's where I think the lesson is. The Ugly Duckling's life changed. Not when he saw himself as a more beautiful version of himself. It's when he saw a completely different creature. I mean, it's subtle, but the point is very significant. He saw another swan. Had he looked down in the water and saw a reflection of a swan, where he thought he was a duckling, I don't think he would have been able to process it. See, all of us have a mental self-image, and it's set like a thermostat, and it comes from years and years of conditioning. So if you set your thermostat to 68 degrees or 20 degrees, depending on where in the world you're watching this from, well, if it gets cold in the house, the heat's going to kick on, and things are going to get cooking for a bit until it becomes comfortable. But if things get too hot, the aircon switches on, and it's the same thing. If we set, too compelling of a goal, and things really start heating up, and as our clients are moving toward their goal, it's too far from their set point, they're going to sabotage themselves to cool things down. And I think the lesson here is find an alternate reference point that's not threatening. If they consider themselves an ugly duckling, don't try to convince them that they're not. Try to find an external reference point, a swan, a totally different type of creature. Could be an actor, could be somebody in their community, somebody in their family that they really admire, and ask them not just what it is that the habits are that this person engages in daily and what do they abstain from that they credit as being why they're so successful, but also ask them, outside of physical attributes, what is it about this person in the non-physical that makes them so attractive? And which one of those attributes are most closely aligned with this individual? Because if somebody has a reference point outside of themselves that inspires them, and they could start to see certain things in their personality that are in correspondence, I think that's not only less threatening, it's far, far more encouraging, because let's be honest, a lot of times when our clients, or ourselves for that matter, see an attribute in someone else that they find really beautiful, it's somewhat in part to the fact that those attributes are reflective of what we see in ourselves.